Hi everyone, welcome back to our show where we discuss all things autism and more. Together with me is Irene, Patricia, and I am Claire. So we've been receiving your comments and your feedback, and something that we feel we need to tackle in this episode is diet and nutrition as it relates to children and people generally on the autism spectrum. We talked about it briefly in some prior episodes, but we feel that we wanted to dedicate some more time to it. And to start us off, we had a comment where somebody was talking about hyperactivity and that how can it be managed in autism. And we got a comment from a friend. We received some feedback, and we're going to share feedback from this friend of the show. Hi, Fern in Nairobi.
I'm fine.
So I think Irene, you'll start us off. You'll read her feedback, and then we'll get into our discussion. Yeah.
Okay. So as Claire had mentioned, there was somebody who wrote to Fan about how to treat hyperactivity. So her response goes, in response to the above, for the past 5 years, we have used essential oils in our olive oils for massage, an aspect which has helped a larger number of children coming to us with hyperactive tendency. We also have to observe dietary measures in respect to each child. Not all respond to gluten-free practices. Each parent needs to observe trigger foods and isolate them. We cannot all afford technical tests, but can observe a 2-week food isolation plan to understand our needs. Some children also require external and internal detoxes. External is easier, a combination of Epsom salt, baking soda, and ACV, that is
Apple cider vinegar.
Yes, in a basin of water would be a great help. Calming the brain internally is also another way. We use sensory integration combined with Nemetschek protocol, which has helped a number of children. Sometimes the key need is calcium and magnesium, which once taken for a while, the basic circulation of blood through the cells, brain, heart, and nerves does improve. Coupled with massage, one notices calmness. Kindly use play-based activities to also improve on attention span, listening skills, as well as eye contact, which will facilitate learning and social interaction. So that was her
Fun
feedback.
response. So clearly, that is very important in managing autism. Not curing, but managing. And there are a lot of nuggets in there in that response, which is why we felt it very important to read it out, because there's a lot to pick. She talked about the Nemetschek protocol. She talked about a gluten-free diet. She talked about sensory integration, which are all important in managing autism. I think the thing is, autism is all-encompassing. We talked about the sensory needs that people on the spectrum have. So you have to approach it from many different perspectives, angles, yes. And sometimes the advice you're given, I think plainly when we talk about diet, immediately people say gluten-free
And dairy
free. Yes.
Sugar-free.
Yeah, sugar-free automatically. But like she said, and which we strongly agree, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Remember, always have at the back of your mind that your child is unique, is different. Their sensory needs are different, and their triggers are different. I also liked how she said that there's a 2-week, because you may not afford the test. A parent out there might be saying, but how will I know? Do a 2-week test and see what triggers, what reactions. When they take sugar, how do they behave? Is it milk that affects them? Is it gluten? Yes, and I think we have an episode where we talked about the things that affect gluten, where you're telling us about pasta and extreme measures. Yes. So you have to study and know for your own child, for your own autistic person, what works for them, and then stick with that routine. Yeah.
And also, it's also important to talk about supplements, food supplements that will help with the brain, to open up the brain, because remember, these children have many defects of the brain and the gut. Maybe you could explain to us the nemesis.
Brain-gut
connection, the mind-gut connection, yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more research. I'm not a scientist, let me qualify myself by statement, but I do know that there's a lot of research between the mind and the gut connection. So if you have an unhealthy gut, then you're going to have
an unhealthy mind.
Yeah. So it can't process or function very well. And I think there's a lot of proof for people who've tried it. There are a lot of stories that once they change diet, even small changes, I think one of the biggest things is sugar. We were talking earlier about how even sugar has connotations for cancer. Sugar really is poison to the body. Now for children with special needs, children on the spectrum, even removing something as simple as sugar can even have a great way it affects their attention span, their concentration, their focus. So the gut in children with autistics, to repeat or to say it again, sometimes is leaky. So they are not absorbing all the nutrients that they need to absorb. Now that has an impact on the brain. So part of even diet and nutrition is to first internally clean the gut. So sometimes you might need to take probiotics. Yes. Take probiotics, clear the gut of whatever is there. It heals, then you start taking the right supplements and the right food. Then the brain starts to heal. Where it needs healing, it starts to come down. Where there's inflammation actually in the brain, then it starts to settle. You clear the inflammation with the diet in that way. If you stick with it. When we say diet and nutrition, don't do it for a month and say there's no change. There's no change. No, because remember, you're healing a gut that has been sick
for how many years?
Correct.
Your entire existence.
Your entire existence. You're healing the gut from all these foods. You're introducing new things. Then the child will lose weight. They won't want to eat. There all those battles. So it's a process. So I would say give yourself at least 6 months of seeing the diet. But certain things I know for one is sugar. When you do it, attention span, concentration somehow start to change for these children.
I think it's important also to remind ourselves that all these discussions and all these interventions, you're looking for ways to improve the quality of life of your child.
That's true.
And the reason I believe we talk about nutrition a lot is not because it's not because it's particular to somebody with autism or someone with special needs. It's about finding the ways of creating the best quality of life that they can live. If any of us was to go into those nutritional plans or have those supplements, our lives would also improve significantly. Our brain functioning would also improve significantly. And for me, I think the fact that these plans affect every single person, like it's a biological process, that gives me a lot of confidence in the fact that it will help even my child who is on that spectrum. So we are not saying that all these things are only things that are particular to people with autism. I'm quite eager to do that myself, to be quite honest. No, because we live in a world right now that has so many illnesses cropping up, and some have been there but they're increasing. And we were actually discussing earlier that, even with autism, many discussions have come up about, why is it so rampant these days? Why is there like an epidemic in autism? And we thought about it and said, we've also evolved as a human race over time. There's so many things that have changed. If you look at our nutrition and our diet right now, the way that we eat, the things that we feed on are a bit different from what our ancestors or those who came before us were eating. They were eating from the ground. If it was not coming from the ground, they were not eating it. They were not doing food processing and all of that.
So
but now we live food in its natural form. So, but we are living in a fast moving, so we've because of convenience, we have so many foods that now have, you have a packet of food that has like over 100 ingredients.
That's right.
We have cereals, we have that
fortified.
are fortified. Thank you.
Yes, they are fortified cereals.
We were talking about why gluten and dairy are so popular, and we talked about how when you think about dairy, even at least for the local setting of us in Uganda, if you think about things like a shavwe or ghee, it was just an addition to your food. It wasn't the main meal,
That's
It was just an addition to but now you can have a whole meal that's based around cheese or yogurt or milk, and that's the main ingredient. And that wasn't always the case, And who's to know that it's not even the most healthy version of dairy, but we won't even get into that. Then we were talking about gluten, and we're talking about how bread, things that have wheat, basically, gluten, bread, pasta, these are not really things that we used to have back in the day. Us as Ugandans, I'm not speaking, because I know that it's traditional to some.
In some, yes.
But also I know that, for instance, the Italians, they make their pasta from scratch.
Yes.
Every time that they cook, they make it from scratch. Yeah. But how many of those packs of pasta that we're getting in the supermarket, those are I think they could also be part of the fortified cereals. So this is all to say that we've evolved as a human race, and our nutrition has evolved as a human race. So obviously there are impacts, and it has an effect on us and our well-being. And maybe if you go back to the traditional way that we used to eat, or the organic foods that we used to feed ourselves with, perhaps that's why the different traits of autism were not as what's the word, emphasized or as apparent. Maybe autism was possibly always there, but not in
as
the manner that that it is now. So I think that's something that we should also think about when we have these conversations about nutrition.
I know, Irene, you were talking about supplements and vitamins, and do you want to talk about which ones you think are most important? What worked for you, for Yona? Because I know we partnered on that as well. We did on that, but I think I would want you to say, trying to figure out what to give him and how to pair them and all that.
So there were quite a number of vitamins, but the ones that really stood out were the vitamin D, vitamin B12, and B6, I believe. Then there was also magnesium, which Fan was talking about. There was calcium. It was a combination.
And a lot of fish oils, good for the brain. Healing the inflammation in the brain.
Today I was watching a video where they were actually talking about that content in the fish oil. Is it called the DHA?
DHA, yes.
Yes, the DHA.
And the EPA, yes.
And the EPA.
Yes.
It is actually for the eyes. It's for the iris. It's supposed to cleanse the iris so that it has clarity of sight, which sight feeds back to the brain.
I'm going to eat more fish.
Can you imagine?
Things we never thought about. What Patricia, you were saying, how our parents, when we were young, I remember mom saying, eat the fish, eat the brain of the fish.
Yes.
And with all their old wives tales, they say, you'll be very clever.
You'd be very
Turns out it had some.
It had. Now we are looking for the fish oil. So you're right. If we went back, because somebody will be sitting out there saying, these supplements cost too much.
Yes.
Go and buy those fatty fish. We have fatty fish. What is it called? The local name? And the Nile patch, yes. Buy the fatty fish, yes, and try and feed the children on that, and boil it, steam it, whatever, as much as possible. The vegetables, all these things you're talking about. We make it as natural. If you can't get the supplements, if you can get them, well and good, but as much as possible, we go back to an organic, natural way of eating to get here.
You know what's so interesting about this conversation? It reminds me of a time when I wanted to relocate and leave Uganda.
I remember we had that talk.
I wanted to leave Uganda because I thought Ugandans don't understand autism. The best chance my child has is to go abroad. Of course, things fail. It's very hard to relocate, and it's expensive. But you know what's very interesting? Our local sources, like our Ugandan diet, that's something I feel like we should be so proud of. Because out there in countries where they don't really have a lot of access to organic foods, or where organic food is actually more expensive than this other, than other options like pasta and bread and all of this, they have to look for gluten-free this, gluten-free that. In Uganda, I just have to make sure that my son has cassava matoke, right? Sweet potato, Irish. I have so many options that don't actually. So whenever we talk about things like you're trying to get out maybe gluten or dairy, or you're trying to get a balanced diet that can ensure to give your child all the minerals and vitamins and the protein that they need, all you have to do is just go back to the basics. We have all of that, and it's something we should be so proud of as Ugandans. That is the one advantage we have as parents or carers of people who are on the spectrum. At least that's one place that we can, we can have like a victory dance over, because we can do that. We can actually have alternatives.
Another thing I'd want to touch on is the heavy metal poisoning. Heavy metal, the best example I'll give is mercury. I think that's where the rumors come from.
The MMR
vaccine. But we won't go into, I think, the vaccine, but
not today.
That's where the rumors come from.
And a lot of people lean into that.
What they say is children with autism are not able to wash out that heavy metal. So there are still supplements, still some of those that you bought for me, like selenium, which is very good in washing that out. Because what happens is for people on the spectrum, they will not wash it out, and then it will stay and just go and destabilize the brain.
It just clogs it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these supplements are basically there to support and fill up for the deficiencies that these children have, and wash out the unwanted
any toxins.
Yes, any toxins that are in the body. Yeah, so they're very, very good to have. And I know maybe a parent might think, where can I get these supplements, or can I afford them? But there are options. We could also look at foods. We could look at foods like we had talked about, the fish. Protein, you look at the free range eggs, the free range chicken eggs. That is also good. Then we have the legumes. So there's a lot
in our Ugandan food.
So if we deliberate in having a diet that is supposed to help to supplement those deficiencies that these children have, if you can afford the supplements, well and good. But if you can't, Uganda is so rich in foods, organic foods. You can't fail to have an option.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I also think, even for the parents that have the means, I think it's also really important, again, to take advantage of the benefit of having access to the natural sources of things. Supplements are really great and stuff, but one thing I don't want to encourage our audience or anyone who's out there watching is for you to now listen to the list of things that Irene has stated, or any of us have said, and go and just buy them off the counter, or someone said, okay, now we are sorted. You need to visit with your doctor and nutritionist. You need to understand your child's actual biomedical things. I don't know what the science is. But you need to know, you need to get a prescription that works for your child. And this is because we've discussed actually that sometimes supplements don't absorb easily.
That's right.
Because they need to work hand in hand with something else. So you might get the calcium and the magnesium, and it's just going through your child's body, and the kidneys are suffering because there's no actual absorption. So there's no value addition to their bodies, and that would be horrible. So if you have the means and you're able to do supplements for your child, please get professional and expert advice so that you are able to balance what your child needs. And possibly even discover certain things. You might find that your child actually doesn't have, some of these things that we're talking about, but they are common in many of them. So yeah,
I think just to add to that, what she's saying, if you have the means, something to do that is important for children on the spectrum is to do an allergen test.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, because of that gut, the leaky gut, they have a lot of food allergies. So what looks like they don't want to eat is because their body, we talked about the sensory processing, is processing it a certain type of way, but they can't communicate it. So it's very good to also get an allergen test and identify what are they allergic to. Because once they eat that, it triggers behavior. And they are off. They can't concentrate. Yes. Diarrhea is one of the things, eggs, fish sometimes. So then that's when you can supplement. Because, so what Patricia is saying is very important. If you can get the medical advice, don't simply go to the pharmacy and buy a whole bunch of things.
And reclaim this entire episode.
They say zinc, magnesium, calcium. No. Go and get a proper pediatric assessment, do everything you need to do, and then start to do it. Again, also very important to do your own assessment. So when you're going to the pediatrician, you're saying, I've observed it. So that 2 weeks or 1 month you take to observe. And I'm the pedantic type. I like to take notes and write down things. So write it down. For this month, this is what we've observed. So when you go into your specialist, you have conversation starters. These are my observations. This is what is happening. You have a proper constructive discussion, not guesswork. I think it was this, but you're able to isolate and say, this is what it is. This is what I think. They also collaborate and help you much better. So you become your own child's therapist, nutritionist, advocate. You are the one there for them, and you start to see the results. So what are we saying? Not in isolation. I'm only going to do that and forget everything. In Fan's response, she talked about sensory diet. Now when we say sensory diet, you might think it is food. No. A sensory diet addresses the sensory needs we talked about. So where there are challenges, you put together a diet. Let's use diet. But the diet means massage. You're going to do play. She talked about play-based activities. We've also talked about those. You're trying to get the child's sensory challenges managed. So using a sensory diet, you're also using diet and nutrition. Actual diet and nutrition to manage all these challenges that our children face. Ladies, anything else we've left unsaid?
Please feel free to add if you have any advice for us, if you have any, value that you can add to the discussion. We're really, really happy to receive it. Feel free to ask us any questions if you want if you have any specific concerns. Feel free to ask. We are planning to have more professionals come and join us on the show, and your comments and questions and reaching out to us is so valuable in helping us decide on who should come and join us during these discussions. So we'll really, really be happy to hear from you.
And I just wanted to say we are not specialists, we're not doctors. We are just sharing our experiences. But maybe if you need to research more about this, I can maybe point out there's one Dr. Berg who has a YouTube channel.
He's really good.
Who talks a lot about
Can
nutrition.
you spell Berg for us?
B-E-R-G.
Okay, thank you.
So he could throw more light and you would be able to better understand the maybe what these supplements are for and how they will support your people with autism.
I also encourage you to join, because quality of life, everybody deserves it. I feel like if you are able to, as a parent, to also join in with your child, you will also see some benefits from having a better diet and stuff. And remember, as a parent, you also have the responsibility of living long enough to look after your child,
to support them,
help them to get to that level of independence that they can. Of course, we're not the givers and takers of life, but let's be responsible with our lives for the sake of the people who are under our care.
So like we say, this show is all things autism and more. We started this program to give hope, to speak about things that somebody is struggling with, unspoken, things somebody is wondering about. And we hope that by even listening to us talk about that, which can be a minefield, what do I do? Where do I start? What do I need? We hope that at least you gleaned something, one or two things that you can pick and start your journey with your person on the spectrum and support them and make changes. I think very importantly, don't do a blanket sweep. I'm changing diet. It's gradual.
Yes.
And then when you see the change, you do something else. When you do blanket, it's also difficult to see the changes.
Yes.
So do gradual, note the changes, see what works, because then it's more sustainable.
Yeah.
So we hope you have enjoyed the show. We've addressed some of your concerns, and that you have a starting point or even a conversation starter with a spouse, with a caregiver, with your medical practitioner and other professionals. If not, come see us at Hana Center, reach out to Patricia at AAU, and we will point you in the right direction and also support you on your journey. Thank you very much for listening to us. Please comment and subscribe. Thank you.
Bye.